When I was a kid, I wanted to move to France, and years later, I ended up in Germany, but I still sometimes wonder what it would have been like to move to France and learn to speak a soft, sexy language like French, so I could say things like, Bonjour, mon chéri, ça va? Instead of using the German sentences that I need today, like, Mein Gott, Clotilde hat haarige Brustwarzen. Welcome to Exploitation Reviews, and me, Rob, and today I'm taking a look at Emmanuelle 2 from 1975. This is the follow-up to the wildly successful first Emmanuelle film that I talked about a few years ago. And even though the first one is something of a classic, I don't really like it very much because it ends up going to some pretty gross places. And I'm not talking about Ohio, I'm talking about these weird, nasty sex things in this movie that just I don't like. I mean, you can call me vanilla if you want, but I don't think that licking bloody wounds or getting gang, in an opium den, these are not sexy things. They're gross things, and I didn't like it. So let's see if this one can improve upon the original by not being gross. We open on Emmanuelle. That's Sylvia Kristel. She's been on the channel loads of times, boarding a boat. The other passengers are all men who work on the ship. No surprises so far. We all know that Emmanuelle spends a lot of time with seamen. On the main ship, she learns her first-class reservation has been mixed up, and she'll be staying in a community room with lots of cots. But at least it's women only. Despite that, Emmanuelle is none too pleased. That night, the woman next to her wakes up and recounts the story of how, when she was a girl at boarding school, 3 girls, offered her some grape soda, and she, of course, had to accept. So, 7 minutes in, and we're already into some stuff that you can't see here on YouTube.
Man, I just work here.
But of course, we don't have to stay here. You can now support the channel on Patreon and get access to spicy versions of my reviews. Link is in the description. The big ship slides easily into port. Emmanuelle disembarks and makes her way to the place where her husband Jean is staying. They get reacquainted. Also staying in the house is a young pilot. He's a smuggler of some sort, but he doesn't smuggle anything that Jean finds objectionable, so he's happy to let him stay at the house. The following day, Emmanuelle takes this pilot out shopping. They happen upon a place that does acupuncture, and Emmanuelle agrees to sit down for a session. After all, Emmanuelle does rather like getting poked.
Your sexual innuendo is priceless.
While sitting in the chair with needles sticking out of her, Emmanuelle fantasizes about what she'd like that cute pilot to do to her. Turn off the seatbelt light, taxi to the gate, put his carry-on into her overhead compartment, stuff like that. Back at the house the next day, the pilot polishes his propeller, and that's not a euphemism. The police pop in and ask him a few questions. They want him to stick around a few more days. He doesn't seem worried that their investigation will turn up anything. And at this point in the movie, we're like 40 minutes in, so you might be wondering, hey, what's the plot here? And there really isn't one. Not really. The closest this thing has to a story is that Emmanuelle becomes friends with Anna Maria, the young daughter of one of Jean's friends. She learns that Anna Maria is a virgin and takes it upon herself to fix that defect. But honestly, even that storyline is mostly ignored, and the camera follows around Emmanuelle, who gets up to various sexual adventures. Various meaning many. At Anna Maria's dance school, she watches some dirty cartoons on a peep show machine, and the dance teacher takes advantage of Emmanuelle's interest in such things. At a polo match, while Jean is swinging his mallet around, Emmanuelle goes into the locker room, finds a tattooed man, and lets him swing his mallet around. At one point, Emmanuelle dresses up as an Asian prostitute and goes to a brothel where she acts the part. And there is at least one point when she does involve Anna Maria in her exploits. Emmanuelle, Jean, and Anna Maria all go to a massage parlor where they get full-body hot oil massages. Interestingly, one of the massagers, masseuses, I don't know what they're called. I just know what to tip them. Anyway, one of them is played by Laura Gemser, who will, in the same year that this comes out, 1975, play Black Emmanuelle in the Italian ripoff of the Emmanuelle series. And that's it. That's the plot, or lack thereof. So that's enough out of me as far as plot goes. Let's talk some highlights. Well, like I said at the top of the video, I didn't like how the first Emmanuelle went to some pretty gross places. And I'm happy to report that there's no gross stuff here. It's all pretty sexy, and all of the people are gorgeous. Sylvia Kristel has never looked better, and Rivet as Anna Maria, ho 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 ho.
She gives me a very strange, very new elation.
Anyway, the scene where they're all together at the massage parlor is a highlight, not just of this movie, but of the original Emmanuelle series altogether. Some of the other scenes are pretty good too. I like the cartoons, that was a fun change of pace. I don't exactly know why a peep show machine was at a school. I mean, did they film this in my office? But, whatever, it was a fun change of pace. But that's about it, really. There isn't much to this movie beyond the sexy. It does do that sexy well, however. Oh, except I did like some of the local culture that they filmed for this. There's some interesting celebrations and whatnot that look pretty cool. Doesn't make it a great film, but it does make it look pretty cool. As a film, like a pilot pulling back on his flight stick, this film has some shortcomings. Well, the main shortcoming is the one I already mentioned. This is a plotless movie. There are times you think there might be some tension or drama, like between Emmanuelle and the pilot, for example, but that goes nowhere. And I don't even think they resolved any of that story stuff with him and the police. I mean, maybe they did and I missed it, but I don't remember them ever addressing that. And okay, I guess that whole, help Anna Maria lose her virginity, I mean, that does give the movie, a little bit of a story, but really not much. Not enough to count, anyway. If all you want is some well-photographed softcore with some gorgeous people, this is your movie. But if you also want that to have some story, or some humor, or some violence, then you're better off with a Radley Metzger film, or a Joe Sarno film, or a Russ Meyer film, or a Just Joaquin film.